A routine U.S. carrier transit off the coast of Venezuela flips into a full-blown crisis in minutes because a Russian patrol frigate drifts too close, pushes too hard, and triggers a chain of misreads that no one can walk back. Warnings flash across open radio channels. Radar spikes light up at 0530Z, and suddenly, two nuclear-armed nations are staring at each other across 18 nautical miles of rising attention, with Venezuelan sensors screaming in the background. No one planned for this encounter. No one wanted it. But the fuse was already burning, and as the morning haze over the Caribbean begins to lift, every ship, every aircraft, and every radar operator senses the same thing. One wrong assumption could start something impossible to stop.
Dawn settles over the Caribbean Sea north of La Guaira as a U.S. carrier strike group moves through its designated maritime corridor. Flight ops are routine. Deck crews work in rhythmic cycles. But at 0530Z, the first alert comes in. A Russian Nostrashimy-class frigate has entered the perimeter, closer than usual, tracking inside 18 nautical miles. At first, it looks like ordinary shadowing. Russia has done this before. But something's different. Venezuelan coastal radars suddenly cut across open frequencies, broadcasting layered warnings, sharp, frantic, and clearly meant to be heard by both sides. The air changes. The bridge crews feel it before anyone says a word. Minutes later, the Aegis display on DDG 109 spikes. A fire control radar from the Russian frigate pulses, brief, deliberate, then vanishing. Another pulse hits at 0610Z, intermittent, testing, probing. The U.S. escorts instantly tighten formation, shifting posture without escalating. High above, an E-2D Hawkeye expands its scan. Its radar, capable of sweeping over 300 nautical miles, catches something new. A K-27 Helix helicopter lifting off the Russian deck, nose pointed directly toward the U.S. screen. The aircrew calls it in with one quiet line that changes everything. Unknown helo inbound, speed roughly 130 knots, closing. On the carrier's bridge, voices drop. The ocean feels smaller. The pattern is no longer routine shadowing. It's movement with intention. Why did the Russian frigate suddenly shift from shadowing to probing?
The moment the Ka-27 drops to low altitude, everything shifts. Its rotor wash skims the waves as it angles toward the U.S. formation, forcing nearby destroyers to elevate readiness to condition yellow. Low-altitude approaches are harder to track, harder to classify, and far easier to misread. Every sensor operator in the screen feels the pressure rise. To counter the move, an American MH-60R Seahawk launches from its pad, engines roaring as it climbs into the battle space. The instant it clears the deck, overlapping radar locks ripple across the air picture. Russian, US, and Venezuelan signatures all bouncing off one another. The sky becomes crowded with signals, each demanding attention, each masking the next. Then, the unexpected hits. The Russian frigate activates its electronic warfare suite. At 0622Z, the Hawkeye's normally clean radar scope flickers with ghost contacts. False returns, multiple echoes, shifting blips that blur the battle space. Operators scramble to rebuild the picture, fighting through the jamming. Inside the carrier's Aegis Combat Information Center, classifications teams try to determine what's real. Civilian aircraft? Venezuelan surveillance? Russian probes? Everything blends as the jam grade just pushes past 20 kilometers. And then, another surprise. The Venezuelan Su-30 Mk2 fighter burst through a layer of cloud, its radar sweep lighting up 0627Z. It wasn't expected here. Not now, not at this altitude. Its presence raises a single urgent question no one is ready to answer. Did the Venezuelan fighter just entered the battle phase by mistake? or on purpose.
The sea narrows, not literally, but in the way every ship suddenly feels too close, every turn too tight. At 0634Z, the Russian frigate unexpectedly veers starboard, trying to avoid a slow-moving civilian cargo ship drifting into its path. But that evasive turn pushes it directly toward the predicted track of DDG 109, closing the distance far faster than either bridge crew anticipated. Both ships' collision avoidance runners wail at once. On the U.S. destroyer, sailors snap to manual helm control. On the Russian frigate, officers shout as they override their autopilot. The two hulls carve white scars across the water, their wakes folding over each other. Then, something more dangerous happens. Russian gunners, believing the U.S. destroyer may collide with them, rotate their AK-630 CIWS, a 6-barrel 30mm rotary cannon, toward the American bow. To the U.S. crew, who see the gun sweeping in their direction, it looks like a weapons warm-up. Sailors race to stations. The phalanx Block 1B sighted west on DDG 109 pows into a ready posture, its 20mm Vulcan cannon swiveling with mechanical precision. The standoff distance collapses, 1,200 yards, 900, 600. And then, cutting through the chaos, a Venezuelan helicopter broadcasts a warning in fractured, barely intelligible bursts. The message is garbled, half static, half words, leaving both sides unsure whether it's a demand to disengage or a call for assistance. Without clarity, hesitation spreads. And in a moment like this, hesitation is lethal. Now, with weapons pointed and distance vanishing, one question grips every deck. With weapons pointed and distance collapsing, who makes the first decisive call to prevent catastrophe?
The two warships steady themselves, neither willing to escalate, neither able to trust the other. For a brief, fragile moment, the Caribbean goes quiet, just the churn of engines and the hiss of warm wind across steel decks. Then, at 0642Z, a burst of tracer fire rips across the water. It comes out of nowhere, slicing between the Russian frigate and the U.S. destroyer. Deck crews on both sides freeze. For a heartbeat, everyone assumes the worst, that Russia fired first, or that the U.S. preempted a perceived threat. But the Hawkeye, orbiting high above with its sweeping radar arc, sees the truth before anyone else. The rounds didn't come from either ship. They came from a fast-moving Venezuelan Type 81 patrol craft, rushing into the battle space at nearly 38 knots. The patrol boat's deck gun spits another warning burst. The rounds skip off the ocean surface, ricocheting upward, one sequence of splashes landing dangerously close to the bow of the Russian frigate. On the Russian bridge, those splashes look exactly like U.S. warning shots. The timing, the angle, the distance, it all fits the wrong narrative. That's when the Russian fire control team reacts. The frigate's MA radar slams into a hard lock at 0644Z, targeting the American ship. For the U.S. destroyer, this is the red line. The Aegis computer instantly shifts into defensive logic. Without waiting for human confirmation, the system begins pre-selecting SM-2 interceptors, building a firing solution in the background. Up above, the Hawkeye crew watches this situation decay in real time, one misread feeding the next, a cascade of wrong assumptions steering two superpowers toward disaster. The question freezes the air over the Caribbean. With weapons seconds from firing, who steps in and how?
The battle space is seconds, literal seconds, from crossing a line no one can come back from. On the U.S. destroyer, the Aegis firing sequence is nearly complete. On the Russian frigate, gunners stand ready beneath the glow of their Fregat AM targeting screens. And in the middle of it all, the Venezuelan patrol boat continues its chaotic sprint. Unaware, it's become the spark in a nuclear tier standoff. Then, at 0648Z, something cuts through the chaos. A US P-8A Poseidon, orbiting far outside the jamming bubble, forces a wide area broadcast. Its powerful comm suite punches straight through Russian and Venezuelan electronic interference, overriding every scrambled frequency on the net. For a moment, all radios crackle to the same channel, and what the Poseidon transmits stops everything cold. Real-time radar footage, clear, time-stamped, geolocated, showing exactly where the tracer rounds originated. Not from the US destroyer, not from the Russian frigate, but from the Venezuelan Type 81 patrol craft, his gunner firing warning bursts that ricocheted wildly into the engagement zone. On the Russian bridge, commanders freeze the fire control sequence. They cross-check the Poseidon's data and recognize the truth. The threat picture they built was wrong. The supposed US warning shots were nothing of the sort. At 0651Z, Russian targeting locks drop away. The US destroyer immediately shifts to de-escalation posture, executing a hard turn to port, expanding standoff distance by several hundred yards, easing the Aegis system back into a cold state. The tension, still razor sharp, begins to unwind. Off the Venezuelan coast, commands finally grasp what nearly happened. Orders go out. All units return to base, cease maneuvers, clear the battlefield. In minutes, the crisis dissolves. But the near miss leaves a question echoing across every ship, every cockpit, every command center. If a single transmission prevented disaster today, what happens next time this signal doesn't get through?
The clash near Venezuela revealed just how thin the line can be between routine operations and irreversible catastrophe. In a sky crowded with overlapping radars, misread signals, and split-second decisions, one misunderstood splash of tracer fire nearly pulled 3 nations into a conflict no one wanted. The lesson is simple and sobering. Modern naval encounters don't escalate because someone plans a fight. They escalate because someone misreads one. If you want more deep dive breakdowns of real naval close calls like US Navy clashes with Russia near Venezuela, then the unthinkable happened. Make sure you subscribe and stay locked in for the next story. Sometimes in these waters, survival comes down to a single transmission.